So, tell me a bit. What's your name?
Well, we're Greg and Janet Deering. This is my wife. We've been together. We're coming up on our 44th anniversary.
Oh, I love that.
And we're the founders of Deering Banjo Company. I started building banjos in 1969. For myself, started building professionally in 1970. We got married in 1974, and by 1975 we'd founded Deering Banjo Company.
We didn't waste any time.
What brought us, we'd known each other since we were kids because we grew up in the same church, but what brought us together as a couple was when we found out that both of us, independently of each other, had a desire to have a family business. And I'd already decided my business was going to be banjos, and she just decided that was fine with her.
I had taken wood shop and worked with my dad building our house and taking crafts classes, and I wanted to make something that would be valuable, that would be handed down generation to generation. So when Greg said he wanted to make banjos, I thought, well, there you go. Perfect. That was just when we were teenagers and, you know, talking after youth group one night. So years later we did get married.
Oh, that's lovely.
You know, and when I first started building, I was part of a little co-op called the American Dream. And it was run like it was our own company, and at the end of every month we would pay 20% of what we brought in to the owner, Sam Ratting, and he would pay all the bills. And it was at that time that I met this young guy that had just moved to San Diego that played the banjo. And he came out to the American Dream and bought some fret wire and some binding and went to his high school woodshop class and built a guitar. And then turned out okay, and when he got out of high school he started hanging out and he got put to work by Sam. And that was Bob Taylor. So I've known him since before he built his first guitar.
Wow, and that's El Cajon, which I know is very close to San Diego.
Yeah, they're in El Cajon now, but this was in Lemon Grove.
Oh, sure, the original.
Where the original American Dream started. And that American Dream nucleus eventually turned into Taylor Guitars, Deering Banjo Company, Stelling Banjo Works, Breedlove Guitars, and Goodall Guitars.
You know James Goodall.
Oh
Yeah.
I
He's from
just
Spring
talked
Valley.
to Gene for about a half hour on the phone. I'd like to bring them into this shop. Not physically yet, but just their guitars. I sold them at the podium and I'm a big fan. So that's, wow,
Yeah.
I love that whole connection.
His original shop was less than a mile from where our factory is now.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
Small world.
That's small world.
Small
I'm
world.
sorry, I'm taking that all in for a second.
Yeah.
Bob Taylor and
After we started
Yeah.
Deering Banjo Company, we were building Stelling's banjos for him because he's not really a luthier. He's always had somebody like us, or Kim Breedlove, or Hudson Dalton building his banjos for him. And our second employee was Larry Breedlove. And then I think our fifth employee was his brother Kim Breedlove. So this is a small world. We were just all kids, had a passion for building, and we wanted to build good instruments that regular people could afford. Because I grew up wanting a better instrument, not being able to afford it. And the dream of making a banjo that everybody can afford is what's been driving our company from day one. We make really fancy, real expensive banjos, and we make the best of the best. But things like our Sierra on the wall, that's the absolute most banjo for the money that you can buy anywhere in the world. And we're constantly striving to make our banjos that way.
well, I think you guys do a successful job at it. I mean, I've worked at a few guitar shops and they've all sold Deering. And successfully, meaning I've had people who want to spend $800 on a banjo. They aren't sure if they're into it. You know, look at your Good Times, for instance.
Yeah.
All the way to having, like you said, someone who wants that master tone or, you know, wants the top Gibson. Finding out about your banjos and having it and having it work. So congratulations, I mean, you definitely have done that. And to hear that you wanted a family business, I love that. I mean, you've also made that happen.
Our kids grew up in the business. As soon as they were old enough to walk, they were out helping to sweep. They've been on the payroll. So they grew up in it. Our son wasn't destined to be part of it. He's a computer IT guy in the oil business in Houston. But our daughter is doing artist relations and market development, and she's doing a fantastic job.
That's really nice when you're able to have, like I had mentioned, the family aspect. The Goodalls do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Father, son, build. Jean, she handles, you know, the marketing and sort of the financial aspects, and that's really lovely. I support that, and I know at Willie's, we like American builders. We like having a sort of smaller, even just the understanding of who's behind the team. And so it's nice to meet both of you guys, and
That's our pleasure. Next time you talk to James Goodall, ask him about his flutes.
oh, he makes flutes?
He did, yeah.
His main passion is flutes. I mean, he's fabulous on guitars. He's an incredible craftsman. But when he's building for himself, he makes flutes.
Wow, I had no idea about that. I will ask, I think I talked to Jean mostly, but I'll bring it up. I'll say, hey, I heard something. All right, so my other question would be just kind of a bit about, do you take away from any modern inspiration in your build, or do you look towards a more traditional style of building?
Well, we're very different than virtually all of our competitors. Most competitors build the banjo they want to build and tell players that's what they should have. We listen to our customers tell us what they want, and we build the banjo they ask us for. Because there's no one banjo that's right for everybody. The maple banjo that J.D. Crowe plays is a great banjo. The mahogany banjo that Bela Fleck plays is a great banjo. But I've talked to both of them, and neither of them like the other guy's banjo. And it's not that one's better or worse, they're simply different. They're both great banjos. And out in the instrument world, there's a lot of opinions that will declare this no good and this good, when actually they're probably both good. They're just different. And there's different players that want different things. And so there's no one banjo that's right for everybody. That's why we have so many different models. Virtually every one of our models and all of our products are there because customers were asking for them.
Oh, that's lovely. I mean, it reminds me of guitars in a way. I always tell people, you know, you can look around this shop. I don't know if I'll sell you an acoustic, but I certainly know that one of these will find you, and it's not because it's a set model, it's because of the woods and all of the components that really make it up in the end. And it's very subjective, so to hear that you feel the same way about banjos,
And we're also very well of the psychological aspect of instruments. You can have a great instrument where all the sound qualities and the playability is there, but when a customer wants a certain detail or a certain look, it doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the instrument. They should have that. They should indulge in it. Another aspect about what we do is constantly doing research and development to improve the quality of the instrument. And that's occurred not only with what we do, but about 15 years ago, Jens Kruger came on board with us. And he's the top virtuoso player there is. And he grew up in Switzerland, and when he was walking home from school every day, he passed a master violin maker's shop. And he would go in there, and the master and Jens, this little boy, would sit down, and they'd talk about why this violin sounded this way, and this one sounded this way. And this was the shop where those instruments would have been a Stradivari or a Monte or a Guarneri. It was at that level. So Jens learned all of the acoustic engineering and physics behind violins. And he's brought that to us, and we've used that to make the banjos better. And basic principle is when the violin was a Baroque violin and hadn't been perfected yet, there was too many overtones that were out of harmony with the primary note. And so the instruments would not blend well in large numbers. And it wasn't until Amante perfected the violin and got rid of most of those overtones that the violin would blend in with lots of numbers, and that's when the symphony started to develop. Well, the banjo has been prone to too many overtones for quite some time. The pre-war Gibsons came the closest to getting those things under control, and even they weren't quite perfect. So Jens, having this knowledge, has been constantly working with, we do massive amount of research on the woods we use, the way we build the rims, the tone ring design, the flange design, the resonator. Every aspect of the banjo is constantly poured over, and we've gradually honed every detail into where we've virtually gotten rid of those overtones that shouldn't be there. And that's why Jens is able to play with his banjo in the front of a symphony orchestra and have it blend.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So
Yeah.
and the goal isn't to make us better than all the competitors. The goal is to get the banjo to that mature level so it takes the rightful place in mainstream music.
Yes, within the instruments that it's already essentially resided amongst for centuries. When did the banjo first come to fruition?
The modern banjo was first developed by Joel Sweeney in 1840. But the basic construction of a banjo, a drum with strings, goes back to prehistoric times. It's much, much older than guitars.
Really? And you're almost looking at a 200-year, 2040 obviously will mark a 200-year modern approach.
Well, I've got a
Which still needed
banjo.
perfecting.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, I've got a banjo that's kind of a carved bowl, long bowl, with an animal skin tied to it, and a stick coming up with 3 pegs and 3 strings down to the skin. And it's played kind of like a hand piano. And this was made about 30 years ago in Africa. A friend of ours that used to work in Africa bought it. And when he met us, he gave us this instrument. We were in the British Museum a few years ago, went to the Egyptian exhibit, and they had one just like it that was 3,000 years old. So
that's a trip.
Yeah.
That's to see that in the obviously a 3,000-year-old museum piece.
Yeah.
it was just like ours.
Weird.
It was a little bigger, but otherwise just like ours. And it was,
How rare and incredible, and
you know.
and to see it in the museum and not necessarily expect that.
So a banjo is a drum with strings, and that's been around for a very long time.
Mm.
It's very, very cool. I think that's why banjos are genetically in all of our blood.
Yeah.
All of us have a piece of banjo in us from prehistoric times.